Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 47 of College Football Throwdown. I am your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hey, Husker fans, what's happening?
That's right. Here we are on this Sunday evening discussing the Nebraska-Illinois game. We did our last podcast from the glorious, what do you call it, center of the universe of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Epicenter.
Yes.
Yeah, I refer to it as the epicenter of the universe.
That's right. Yes, the epicenter of the universe, Lincoln, Nebraska, where we had a fun podcast with my sister Olivia and my cousin Haley. I thought that one was a good bit of fun right after the Rutgers game. But now we're back to our traditional setup after watching our Friday game of the Illinois game.
Yeah, that was a little bit odd, but I'm glad there's a lot of momentum to not do that in the future.
Yeah, it seems like people are, just because that's high school football, and just selfishly for me, I had to get off of work a little early to try to make it to the game, so it puts added pressure, me to watch the game.
Yes, but mostly it's about high school football. That's my big opposition to that.
Right. Yes. Okay. And one little tidbit I wanted to mention here before we get into the meat of our podcast. I was checking our iTunes page today, and I clearly don't check it often enough because we actually have a review on there that I hadn't seen before.
Okay.
So this is actually from February 25th, 2016. So a little old, as I mentioned. But it's from username MSU Dad. Rated 5 stars, love it, says, I'm a guy who knows very little about football, but both my kids go to Big Ten University, so I want to be able to know what's going on, and this podcast is great. So,
wow, that was nice of him.
Yes, so thank you, MSU Dad. We appreciate that, and you guys can find us at College Football Throwdown on iTunes and leave similar reviews, whether positive or negative. We just like to hear constructive feedback.
Absolutely. Would love to hear from anybody who's interested or finds our particular approach with the father-son duo and just the almost dialogue nature of us having a conversation with each other is whether they enjoy that or not.
Yeah. All right. And before we get into our discussion of the game, I think you have a beverage for us there, Dad?
I do, my son. Yes, I'm ready to do this too, boy. Long day.
All right.
Ah,
there it
okay.
is. Beautiful.
Happy camper.
All right.
Happy camper.
All righty then. So, going into the Illinois game, first things first, we're going to go over our predictions. So I had predicted a 28-17 victory, whereas you had predicted a 42-21 victory. Haley had a 28-21 victory, close to mine, and Olivia said 31-21, whereas the actual final score was 28-6.
Okay.
So I think I win again for being closest, considering that I got our score correct and actually overestimated on their score, but I was the lowest of everyone who voted.
But my margin was almost right.
That's true. You had the 21-point margin, which you got. So I don't know. The listeners can decide.
We'll call it a draw. Yeah.
All right. Fine. Call it a draw. Because you were. I guess your kind of philosophy going into it was that you thought we could definitely score on them, but that they would score on us. And in actuality, our defense did a pretty good job of shutting them down the whole game.
They did, and our offense could have and frankly should have scored more points.
Right. Well,
we did not play well in the second half, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
Yes, we will get into that. And that last drive of the game, we were just running Ozigbo, and he was getting 4 yards of carry, so we definitely would have scored on that drive, I think, if we had been inclined to, but we were just content to run out the clock and go home with the W there.
Right, exactly.
Which I'm fine with. I don't need to be one of these teams that runs up the score, because on the plus side of things, it seems like Langsdorff listened to the podcast from last week and took a few things to heart in terms of running the football and focusing on getting first downs and things of that nature.
Yes, I would totally agree with you. And I loved the fact that he changed up his passing game and changed the types of pass plays. Now, we did have some big explosive plays, don't get me wrong. I mean, the 45-yard touchdown pass to Pearson was typical of some other games that he's had in the past, but he did have a good number of passes that were shorter, that were just beyond the sticks, or 5 yards beyond the sticks, and were the lower percentage, or excuse me, lower risk, higher percentage types of passes that I have tried to ask for on this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that as well. We were definitely throwing some, like 7-yard, 5-yard passes, that then, sometimes the 5-yard pass, our guy would run enough to get the first down. And I definitely liked seeing that change because that's something that is easier on Tanner, builds some confidence, gets our team the first downs, which is what we want right now.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going into some stats from the game, I have them pulled up here. We had 23 first downs compared to their 15, and we're 7 for 11 on third down conversions, was there were 5 of 12. And I think you can look to our running game for why we were able to get more third downs than we have been in the past.
Right, absolutely, because you had a lot more third and manageable type of situations. Well, not a lot more, but we had more, and then there was some good third down conversions on the pass side as well.
Right. Yeah. And another overall trend, which this was a bit different from the past, is that the joke this year so far has been that we've been awful in the first half, good in the second, or just better in the second half in general. Was this time our first half was the exemplary one, and the second half was where we struggled. Because in the first half, I think they got one field goal off of us on defense, and then our offense scored on each possession that they had, and they only got 21 points just because the time went so fast between us running the ball and Illinois running the ball. But there's really not a whole lot to complain about in that first half. We really were in control of firmly in control of the ball game there.
Well, I would agree. Only to the extent that you have to acknowledge the success in terms of scored points of Diaco's defensive philosophy, but it still frustrated me how long Illinois was able to retain possession of the ball, simply because we continue to play off. And when I say we, I know that in some cases it's that the coaches are telling the guys to do this. In others, I think the defensive backs are given a little bit of freedom to choose. And we have a couple of DBs that I think choose to play off way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Don't understand down and distance.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. There was one play in the first quarter I remember where they just threw like a little slant that was like a 3-yard pass, but our guy was so far off the ball that I think they got a first down off it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But going back to our stat sheet here, 411 total yards for us, 199 for Illinois. So we get to hold on to that under 200 stat again, even though it's by 1 yard.
Right.
256 pass yards for us, 106 for Illinois. 17 of 24 on completions and attempts versus them being 10 and 16. So that is definitely much better completion rating that we've had. And like you say, I think going for a lot of those quicker passes was a factor in that.
I would agree, absolutely. And it's it's the nature of an offensive, I should say, play calling sequence that I think would lead us to greater success in terms of being able to move the football, even against a superior opponent, a better opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then our favorite stat here, rushing yards. We had 165 rushing yards to their 93. Both had basically an equal number of attempts, 38 to their 37. But we had 4.3 yards per carry, whereas they had 2.5.
Wow. Yeah, there's no doubt that with a couple of exceptions, our run defense was pretty deep, pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, like you say, there were like one or two series where they got a little drive going on us, but in most of those times we either stopped them and forced them to punt, or they had to kick a field goal, instead of getting
Yeah,
the touchdown.
their quarterback hurt us with running plays.
That's true. There was one play where he like scrambled and we just had like four guys like try to tackle him and fail, and that was pretty bad. But
That was.
his throwing, his lack of ability to throw the ball, definitely helped us in a lot of cases too. So that's the clear drawback of him. Yeah.
Oh, did I lose you?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, great. Okay.
Sorry, did you hear what I said there?
No. Say that again.
I was just saying that his running definitely helped them, but then also his inability to pass the ball in a lot of situations was a big help, because there were some just way off balls that he threw.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah, there's no doubt that they have him behind center for his legs, not his arm.
Yeah. And then lastly, 1 of 1 for turnovers, although their one turnover was near the end of the game when it didn't really matter so much. And then time of possession, we were pretty close, although we had 31 minutes compared to their like 28-52. I believe that's what it was.
Got it. Yeah, and again, time of possession is a hollow stat unless you understand the dynamics of the game, right? The circumstances and number of points differential that existed and those kinds of things.
Yes, it's true. But so as we said at the beginning, it was nice to see those adjustments on offense and to see our defense be able to shut down a weaker opponent. I was joking with you after the game that I'd almost forgotten what a solid victory felt like, because we've had just so many close games, even against teams where we know we're the better. We have more talent,
Right, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is that, and I feel bad a little bit about that, Alex, because it's hard for me to continue to try to describe to you or others what it was like during an era of Nebraska football, which lasted not just for 3 or 4 years, but truly was about a 35-year period of time. Most of my life, I experienced that, and so it would have been unfathomable for the 1995 Peter Schmetz to be able to comprehend what we've gone through in the last 15 years.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's something we talked about on our podcast with AJ from back during the summer. Just kind of that different mentality. Whereas, a Husker fan like me, I grew up after that era. There was an interesting part of the game where they showed like the stats of like all of our head coaches from Frank through Mike Riley.
Right.
Yeah, and currently at least his stats don't stack up great, and it makes you wonder once again, like, why did we fire Frank? Like, we had a good thing going there, it seems like.
Well, I understand why Frank was fired, but I think it was a premature decision. I think Frank needed to do better than he was doing, but his biggest issue was recruiting.
Right.
His biggest issue, he had other issues. But he had inherited a staff that was Tom's, and he had some issues that he needed to work through in the right way. And it took a few years for him to get there. And then as soon as he was starting to get there, Peterson fired him. So it was crazy, but that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now transitioning into the second half, Like you said, that's where, I remember I was texting you during the game and I was hoping like, okay, we come out strong here. We go up from 21 to 28 and, kind of shut them down in the third quarter. So like in the fourth, we could like play our second, third teamers and just kind of coast to victory. But we kind of let them get back in it. Well, not get back in it, but we were our inability to score for a while there. Let them stay competitive at least.
Right. The game was absolutely still in doubt, especially given the fragility of our overall team, and it really bothers me that again we weren't able to take a team in a situation where we were on the edge of them being pretty much solidly out of the game, and to be able to come out in the second half after having had a good first half and immediately demonstrate that, hey, I don't care what kind of adjustments you made at halftime, we're going to dominate you just as much in the second half. And instead of doing that, we went 3-and-out.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then I'm trying to remember, was it when Pearsonell caught that punt and then he got slammed like immediately? And did he fumble the ball there? I'm trying to remember where our one turnover came from.
No, yeah, he did. He did fumble the ball there, but we got it back in that situation.
Okay. Or it was Ozigbo, right? It was Ozigbo's fumble
Yeah,
was the one they got.
correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Which, we've been singing his praises and
Yep.
and he played well during the game, obviously,
At times.
except for that part, and
Yep.
that was a thing in a previous game. I think he fumbled it, but we got it back. And it frustrates me just because I like Ozigbo and I want him to play more. But in that situation, the coaches should bench you, if you're having slippery fingers.
Absolutely. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
And it was great to have Stanley Morgan back in this game with him coming back from his injury, and he had some great catches. But then he also had several there in the second half where he just plain dropped a ball that was right in his hands.
That's true. It was amazing. He made some really, really tough catches where either he caught the ball and then just got drilled immediately and he hung on, or he caught the ball and he fought for a first down. I mean, he did some great things. But then there are a couple of passes that were thrown his way where he was, frankly, in both cases that I'm thinking of right now, he was wide open. I mean, and the ball was hit him right in his hands, and he dropped both of them. It's like, come on. But, when he's coming back from a neck injury in which he had some kind of stiffness in his neck, and that's one where, man, to even play football when you've recently, had that kind of an injury is, to me, pretty remarkable. I know I always was paranoid when that would happen.
Right. I hear you there. And so, yeah, there were some moments like that. I remember there was one where our guy, Tanner Lee, was like second down, and instead of like, he's getting pressure, and instead of throwing the ball away, he like tried to force a throw or he got sacked or something like that.
Yes. I mean, and that leads to maybe the bigger discussion. I mean, let's go ahead and cut to the chase on that game, Alex, and say, and I want to ask you the question, and then I'll answer it from my own perspective. But was that a game that you believe gave legitimate confidence to our team as we head into this critical 2-week stretch before our bye week? We get a bye week after Ohio State, I believe. And so the question is, was this the kind of win that we needed to be able to go into our preparation for a Wisconsin team, truly believing that not only do we have a chance, but that we have a good chance to beat a Wisconsin team that has to come into our house and play in Lincoln at night and win against that Wisconsin team? Can we do that based on this game? Does that give us momentum to do that, or not?
I definitely think that this game has given us confidence. Now, looking at the game from my perspective, I definitely think part of it was just that Illinois was playing bad. Their quarterback missed several throws. They had dropped passes. There was a pick that was like right in the guy's hands that our guy had to like
Become defender.
right. He had to become a defender and bat it away, which he did a good job at. So the Illinois gave us, some of that domination that we had. Was just Illinois playing bad. But I also do think that we legitimately made some good adjustments. There were players making good plays and things like that. So it was a combination of them playing bad and us playing well. And I definitely think it did give us some confidence. I think that is really important, to give Tanner some confidence, sitting there in the pocket or knowing that he can give the ball to Ozigbo or Wilbon, we can get some yards just doing that and take some of the pressure off of him. Now, do they think that we have like a good chance, like it's like 50-50 whether we're going to beat Wisconsin next week? Or 60-40 or whatever. I don't know if it's that much, but I definitely think it leaves it open that we can, if we play well and they make like one bad mistake, like one turnover, then I definitely think we can win.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you that if Wisconsin were to come in and maybe not play their best football, and make some uncharacteristic mistakes like turnovers, then that certainly enhances our chances.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my thought. I think that this game takes us off the massive fragility position that we were in, where I think we were a super fragile football team going into Illinois. I think we were a team that really had very little confidence or belief that what we were doing or what we had accomplished was something that we could build on, and so I think that game against Illinois helped us in that we were able to go out and like you said, fairly efficiently early in the game, establish that we were the better team, and then hold on to that through the whole first half. And then came out in the second half. We stumbled a little bit, but our defense played well enough that we continued to maintain control. And then we got another score, which gave us that 3-score lead that I always talk about. So, and then we were good, right? So I like that part. But to be honest with you, I think one bad pass or a couple of almost picks from Tanner Lee and him mentally, he's right back in the tank. Here we go again kind of mentality. And I think that's true for our fans too. I think that's you will witness the rise and the fall of the crowd as well, because we're not going to be as resilient as a Nebraska crowd of old, right? So there is definitely some issues that way. I almost wish we had another game before we had this Wisconsin Ohio State stretch against another lesser opponent, so that Nebraska could really start to establish itself offensively and to seek and develop that identity that you and I keep hoping they're going to find. It doesn't, to me, I don't think it's the kind of confidence building win that I was looking for. I was looking for Illinois. If we had dominated them 48, to 7, or even 35-14, something like that, but we're in control pretty much from the outset, I would feel a lot better about that. But we didn't get that. So now let's fast forward to next week and the Wisconsin game. I find it fascinating, and you and I talked before we began the podcast just briefly about Wisconsin's most recent game, which was Wisconsin against Northwestern. And when I saw the score, not having watched the game, I was shocked. I was shocked to see that Northwestern could hang that close to Wisconsin. I genuinely thought Wisconsin was going to have a fairly dominant victory against Northwestern. So that presented the possibility of some hope for us, the fact that Northwestern was able to score 24 points. So it was important for us to look at those details, and I'll let you talk a little bit about what your thoughts are going into the Wisconsin game. But I'm of the opinion we're going to have to play extremely well. They're going to have to make some uncharacteristic mistakes. But if those two general statements come true, Nebraska at night is a tough, tough out for anybody coming in to visit us.
I definitely agree with that. And looking at that Wisconsin Northwestern game, which was a 33-24 victory for Wisconsin, you were talking about turnovers being uncharacteristic for them, which I'd say in general is true. But in that game, they had 3 turnovers. Now Northwestern had 2, so it evened out a little bit. And one of those for Wisconsin was a pick 6 that they took home. But their offense, I did not watch the game in full. I just watched the recap of it. But their offense struggled against Northwestern. And so if our defense continues to play well, and we can stuff their running game, which is something that they try to use effectively, I think we can slow them down enough there that if our offense is playing well, we can keep up with them. And I would agree with you that I think we need to play well. They need to make at least one big mistake, like a turnover at a key moment, that gives us a short field, that gives us an easy touchdown or pick 6 or something like that. I think we need something like that to ignite us a bit, and then maybe we could pull out the W.
I would agree. I think that having some things kind of fall our way, where you get some gifted points or some easy opportunities for points, that just happen in games, that would be a very valuable thing for us. But I can assure you that they defensively are going to be all over Tanner Lee and our offensive system. They are not going to respect our wide receivers. They're going to line up pretty tight to them and be aggressive at the line of scrimmage. Our offensive line is going to have to pick up blitzes, and they're going to have to know what the hell they're doing. And if they don't, then Tanner Lee has a good chance of getting crushed on a few occasions. And we're gonna have to find ways to pass the football as well as run it, and be effective.
Right. Well, and I thought that was an interesting stat from the Northwestern game. Northwestern actually had 219 pass yards against Wisconsin. They were 29 of 45, averaging 4.9 yards per pass with 2 interceptions. And then their rushing was 25 yards with 34 attempts. So they basically completely shut down Northwestern's attempts to rush the ball. And so my worry would be if they can just totally stuff us there and we're forcing Tanner to make those throws, that's where we get into a problem. So I think being able to establish, not that Ozigbo is running all over them, because that's just not realistic, at the start of the game, but where they have to respect it at least.
Right.
I think that is very important.
Yep. I would 100% agree. 100% agree. And so the scenario for how we win, I believe, is that we need to be able to run the football against them at least adequately, which means that our offensive line has to be challenged this week. I think we've got some younger guys who got moved into the starting lineup because of injuries that have actually gelled quite well. And I would be talking with our offensive line this week about here's what you have to do, so that we're establishing or trying to establish a running game, so we can control the clock a little bit too. And then our play action passes are just so much better. But then the other thing is we need a little bit of the Memorial Stadium magic. We need the intensity and the focus, the catching the footballs. We can't have Morgan dropping passes that are thrown right in his hands. We need our tight ends to catch the damn ball when that's thrown to them. And if we can get that done, then we have a very good chance of being able to basically do what we want to do, which is keep Wisconsin's offense off the field and maybe grind and pound a little bit with Wisconsin's defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and clearly I think both the team and the university understand the importance of that game. That's the game where we're going to be wearing the 97 jerseys. That's our special jersey for this year. Like you say, it's a night game. So Memorial Stadium is going to be rocking at the start, I think. Now, like you say, if we, go 3-and-out and they score immediately, then that stadium might quiet up real quick. But what I'm hoping for is that we stay competitive with them, throughout the game, make some good halftime adjustments. And if we can find a way to beat Wisconsin, I don't care if it's by 1 point, as long as we get the W, that is really big for Mike Riley right now, because we can go the next week and lose to Ohio State, and that will be expected. But then if we've beaten Wisconsin, that's our main rival here in the West, and if we can beat them, then I think we could beat basically everyone left on our schedule except for Penn State maybe. And now that's not to say that we're guaranteed to. Obviously, we need to play as well as we did against Wisconsin. But if we can beat them, then the dream of making it to the Big Ten championship game is still alive for us for sure. Yeah. Hey, did I lose you?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, not at all. I was listening to you.
Okay. Well, what do you think of that?
Well, no, I couldn't disagree with anything you said. That I thought it was exactly right. And so, bottom line is if we can get that accomplished, then we can find ourselves to a victory. And I think if we did that, then the whole perspective on the season changes. Because now, even if most fans know, okay, there's a likelihood we're going to lose to Ohio State. But if you look back in the history of our series with Wisconsin, we are a play or two away from 3 victories against them. Mm-hmm. 3 more victories than we have since we joined the league. And so they're a team that we've always played well. Even last year when they were clearly the superior team, we basically took them to overtime. Now then, a week or 2 later when we played Ohio State, we got crushed and we were a disaster. And part of that was the injuries that had accumulated at that moment in time is what did that at Ohio State. But still, if we can get a few more of our guys back this week, especially if Kalu and some of our other defenders come back, which I'm hopeful for, and I wonder about Trey Bryant being back, mm-hmm. And if all of a sudden some of those health concerns are diminished by having some of those guys return, and hopefully Morgan is even that much more limber and comfortable in what he's trying to do, because we so desperately need him to be able to stretch that team, then maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that we could have the old magic make it happen for us.
Right. And the other key, this is the last thing I'll say, is we need Langsdorff to take what he's learned from the second half of the Rutgers game and this game and stick with it. I don't want to see him come out running these sorts of plays, in the first quarter, and then we go down, and then he starts passing it all over the place, and we're back to Tanner Lee throwing bombs all over the field. Right. Even if we're down, we got to stay committed to, if like the running game is just being completely stuffed, then obviously you got to pass it. But use those little short passes and routes.
Yes.
And let's build some momentum that way and not revert back to old habits, because otherwise it could spiral real quick.
I would agree. And see, that's been kind of the MO of Nebraska in some games where they kind of get overmatched, and then the wheels fall off because they start trying to do too much, right? And we've had 10 years of quarterbacks who do that. And the assumption going into this season was, with Tanner Lee, those years were over, and yet that's what we've seen. So you got to start pointing to the play caller, the guy who's pulling a string.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on HuskerMax.com, actually, they had a stats comparison between us and Wisconsin. They were beating us in most regards, but there were a few things that stood out to me. One was that we have a little bit better special team stats than they do, so that could be interesting. We are tied in terms of red zone offense. We had .85, which is 64th in the country, I guess. And then our rushing defense is actually the 22nd best in the whole country, only allowing 105.8 yards on average. But Wisconsin is fourth with 74.3. So there's a couple of situations like that, like time of possession, we're 25th with 32.56, but they have 34.48, So I thought that was interesting, and of course those are stats we've gained from playing lesser competition, whereas Wisconsin's our first legitimate challenge. Well, I shouldn't say that. Oregon was legitimate.
Right.
But, Wisconsin's the first big one, for sure, that matters.
Yep. Totally agree. And so the question is, can we rise to the occasion? Can we play better than we've played all year and with confidence? Or are we going to be the limp noodle that as soon as we get hit in the mouth one time, we become, a punching bag?
All right. And now I'm going to lay out a worst case scenario for you here.
Okay.
We go against Wisconsin. We fall behind early and we spiral, and it's ugly like we've seen in the past. And they beat us by, 40 points or whatever. And then we're dejected and we lose big to Ohio State as well. And we're looking at what would that be, 3-4 record right now.
Right.
Where does that leave Mike Riley's job security, you think?
Oh, I think his job security is very, very tenuous. I think it's at that point you're probably looking at a lot of the recruiting commitments, questioning whether they're going to stay the course. And if you start to see a little bit of that, which you almost certainly would after those kinds of defeats that you just described, and I think Mike Riley's time as our head coach is simply a matter of defining the date.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
That's the worst case scenario. Now let's give us the best case scenario, which is that Nebraska finds a way to win against Ohio or against Wisconsin. Since it's at home, it's at night, and we the magic returns, and Tanner Lee. Now that's a game that could build confidence, where Tanner Lee now has a quality win under his belt, right? So, and more importantly, that gives us the win in the head-to-head over Wisconsin. So then, unless Wisconsin were able to, beat beat Michigan, and really dominate everybody else, then we could afford, if you will, to lose to Ohio State and lose to Penn State, and with 2 losses, still win the North.
Right. If Wisconsin lost.
The West, rather. The West, not
right.
The North. The West.
And now you got me looking. I want to see who else Wisconsin plays.
Well, they would have lost to us. That's one loss.
Oh, and then Michigan.
And then they would lose to Michigan, and then the head-to-head would come into play, and we would win that.
Okay.
But that would be a scenario where we only lose in conference play to Ohio State and Penn State. That means we beat everybody else in the West, and then and we beat Wisconsin as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's totally possible. I mean, I think if it starts to click, and if Tanner Lee is playing well, and we're Langsdorff has run the offense well, and Diaco's defense is able to keep up this performance we've had against these lesser offenses. We've got some legit talent there. It's just if it can all gel together, I think.
Right, and that's the thing. And Tanner Lee has to make great decisions, not just good decisions. He has to make great decisions, and then our offensive line has to mature like overnight.
Yeah, well, because Wisconsin's strength is their defensive line. So this could be, like you say, this is a big challenge for the offensive line for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if we're staying on the optimism train here for a second, Ohio State is not the invincible team that they have been in, or seemingly invincible team at least that they have been in years past. They've struggled a little bit with their offense and things of that nature. So if we pull off now this is being very optimistic, but if we can pull off the a significant victory over Wisconsin, we beat them by like two or three touchdowns. Then that gives us some major.
Shit.
Yeah, I'm dreaming here right now, but that would give us some major confidence, and then maybe Ohio State. Who knows if they have a bad day?
Let me interrupt. If we win, it doesn't matter if I win by 1 point. If we win by 1 point in overtime against Wisconsin, it's irrelevant. It's just a win. That's all we need. Then we can shift our focus to the following week and say, okay, we got to do this one more time. We're at home, blah, blah, blah. The energy and the crowd and everything, people will understand the importance of this. Now we're 3-0. If we beat Wisconsin, we're 3-0 in the division, in the conference, and we're facing an Ohio State team, like you said, that maybe has appeared to be less of the juggernaut that it was when we played them last year. And we could look at it and say, okay, let's do this. Let's find the way, and maybe even a little revenge factor because of the way they kicked our butt, and those all kind of come together, and we have a magical night, and we beat Ohio State. Now we're 4-0, and we've got a week off to get healthy and to kind of gather ourselves, and we could then proceed into the second half of the schedule with two really significant wins under our belt. One stumble, against Northern Iowa, which now, start looking at that 21-17 and Northern Illinois. I mean, they almost beat SDSU, who's ranked 19th. So all of a sudden that game and that team is more legitimate. Maybe we're not as bad as we thought.
Right.
That's the whole conversation shifts.
True. Although I will say, even in the best case scenario where we win those two games, I think we're coming out of it injured in several areas just because they're very physical teams. Now, like you say, we have the bye week after that, so that should definitely give us a little bit of time to heal. But knowing how it went last year, as you explained, things could. We could struggle to win against Penn State or Iowa and Minnesota and those sorts of teams later on just because of our major injuries as a result of these two games.
That is true, but let's again, if we're being that optimistic, we can also assume we're going to be invincible and we will not have any injuries.
Yeah, let's keep dreaming. All right, so
exactly.
Time for
predictions.
Predictions. What do you got?
Well, my realistic hat would say we're not going to win this game. Wisconsin is just that much better. But, Wisconsin's struggle with Northwestern gives me a glimmer of hope. That combined with Nebraska at night, which has been a pretty intense environment for others who have faced it, I'm going to say we find a way, and we win 24-23.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to go with, let's see, what was I just thinking? So you said 24-23.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a 31-28 victory, a little higher scoring.
But a victory by Nebraska.
God,
we are just stupid optimists. I love it.
You know it, man.
Now, we there's a very real possibility we're going to be having a podcast next week saying, okay, well, we were really being optimistic, but here's the reality of what happened. And we're going to be backtracking on that whole thing, and we may be having a whole different conversation. But, that's the beauty of sports. It's the beauty of college football specifically, where it's kind of a one-and-done type of thing with most teams every year. And we desperately need this victory. We need to beat Wisconsin in this game. They have had our number. They have gotten so lucky against us in critical situations, and it's our turn.
Yep. Well, I definitely agree with you there. Last point before we wrap up. Let's say that we new hypothetical scenario for you. We lose to Wisconsin. We lose to Ohio State. They're disappointing, but we play well. We stay competitive at least. We lose by like a touchdown. We don't get blown out or whatever. And then we're looking ahead to the rest of the season. Where do you think that leaves the team and Mike Riley then?
Well, I would say that if that happens, that Mike Riley would still be on thin ice. But I think there would still be a lot of people saying, "Yeah, we're young. These were two games we kind of expected we were going to lose, but we played well. There were these examples of hope and optimism for the future because we're a young team." And I think that there's maybe more momentum to retain him than to boot him. As far as the team goes, then you get a week off. You get to regather yourself, and you see if you can win out, and get better as the season goes, so that you can get into a bowl game. And I think that's the focus then. Then it's not about winning a championship or winning even the division. It's just about let's do this thing so we can get to a decent bowl game and have a good positive thing for ourselves, and then we're going to build on next year. That's the deal.
I agree. All right. Well, let's hope for the best next week and cheer for our Huskers. That's going to be the plan.
Absolutely.
So if you all out there enjoyed this podcast, you can email us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us on iTunes, as we said earlier. Leave us ratings or reviews there. You can find us on footballthrowdown.podomatic.com. You can leave comments there. Check out all of our past podcasts, things of that nature. Anything more you want to say to the fans out there, Dad?
No, you know what? Wear red and cheer loud.
There you go. All right. So until next time, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.